We will now commemorate the victims of the Holocaust while symbolically reflecting on the lives of 6 Jewish legal practitioners from the Netherlands who were amongst the victims. Ambassador Naor Gilon will lead the ceremony. He will be assisted by Anne Dunkelkron and 6 young members of the local Jewish community: Asher Baruch, Kerenor Houtman, Natalie Berg, Lior Stasson, Noam Guez, and Aviva Tweezer. The musical accompaniment will be provided by a very talented duo of the Royal Conservatory, Anna Fronzak and Christina Snocker, I can't say it. Thank you.
Mayor, Excellencies, ambassadors, judges, rabbis, representatives of the municipality, scholars, distinguished guests, and family members of those who perished in the Holocaust and of survivors. We are gathered here today in The Hague, in the city of international law and justice, to remember and honor the millions of victims of the Holocaust and the survivors and their families. It is an honor for me to represent the State of Israel, but on a day like today, it takes on special significance. I'm not just an Israeli diplomat. I'm also a son of a Holocaust survivor and a descendant of those who perished in the Holocaust. And Aryeh, your story is one of many I could really sympathize with it. During the Second World War, the Nazis orchestrated the collective murder of 6 million Jews, 1/3 of the entire Jewish people, women, men, young, old, religious, secular, rich, and poor. A large majority of the Jewish population of the Netherlands perished, and the majority of the Jewish communities simply ceased to exist. In addition, the Roma, the homosexuals, the mentally ill, the disabled were also all murdered throughout Europe. The Nazi death industry expanded into every corner of the occupied countries. Each victim murdered for their ethnic affiliation was an individual with their own name and unique identity, their own abilities, hopes, and dreams. Human lives are precious, and the murder of one human being is a loss not only for their family and friends, but also to the world. Today we fulfill our sacred commitment of remembrance to each and every one of them. With members from the Jewish communities in The Hague who stand with me, we pay tribute and respect to 6 million victims of the Holocaust. The 6 candles also symbolize many more human beings who were not only Dutch citizens and part of the Jewish community, they were also part of the community of jurists. We can never comprehend the magnitude of what we have lost. We do not know much about their inner lives, hopes and loves, but we do know that they were lawyers and understood and shared our values of law and justice. And now we would like to begin reading the names and stories and lighting the candles.
Meester Eduard Bellinfante.
Meester Edward Bellinfante was born in 1875. He had a law office in The Hague and was involved in many Jewish organizations. He served as chairman of the Portuguese Jewish community in The Hague. He was secretary to the Bureau for Consultation, and from 1933 was active with Jewish refugees coming from Germany. In 1943, he was deported to Westerbork with his wife, Judith Bellinfante Mendes da Costa. In 1944, he accompanied his wife voluntarily from Theresienstadt on the last train to Auschwitz. He died in the train on the way there.
Meester Ernst
Meester Ernst Lodewijk Visser.
Meester Ernst Lodewijk Visser was born in 1901. He was the son of Meester Lodewijk Visser, president of the Supreme Court. After studying law at Leiden University, he became actively involved in the resistance. He was involved with the Parole Group, the resistance group which published the illegal resistance newspaper, Het Parool. He was arrested in July 1942 because he refused to wear the Jewish star, and deported to Mauthausen in August, where he was murdered in September.
Meester Dr. Elizabeth Howden.
Meester Dr. Elizabeth Goudeket was born in 1894. She studied law at the University of Amsterdam and received her doctorate in 1919. She held positions as Jewish social work in Amsterdam, the Society for Palestinawerk, and the Vereniging de Bescherming van Joodse Meisjes. She was deported to Bergen-Belsen, where she managed to survive until 1945. She died in May 1945 in Trobitz as a result of her deprivations.
Meester Dr. Anna Leidensdorf-de Leeuw.
Meester Dr. Anna Leidensdorf de Leeuw was born in 1889. She studied law at the University of Amsterdam and received her doctorate in law in 1915. Anna belonged to the so-called Barneveld group. She was interned and later deported to Camp Westerbork, where she died in May of 1943.
Meester Dr. Lodewijk Ernst Visser.
Meester Dr. Lodewijk Ernst Visser was born in Amersfoort in 1871. He became a lawyer and lectured in human rights. After practicing law in Amsterdam and working in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, he joined the Dutch Supreme Court. He became president of the Supreme Court in 1939. In 1940, he was suspended and eventually fired as part of the mandatory resignation of all Jewish officials. None of the other Supreme Court officials protested following his suspension and dismissal. Meester Visser spoke out continually against the measures taken by the occupiers. He died in February 1942 as a consequence of a brain hemorrhage. Today, Meester Visser has become a symbol of courage and moral leadership.
Meester Dr. Jacob Wel.
Meester Dr. Jacob Weil was born in 1889. He studied law at the University of Leiden, received his doctorate in 1912, and started his law practice in The Hague on the Lange Poorte. In 1929, his younger brother joined him in the firm. He was active in the Jewish community, chairman of the NIG, chairman of B'nai B'rith, as well as active in many other organizations. He also took part in the resistance. He was arrested and deported to Westerbork in March of 1943. Deportation to Sobibor followed in July, where he was murdered. Wait for the music.
Yeah. Thank you very much. The fragile nature of humanity reinforces the importance of remembering these stories, of having such stories be told to us, to our children, and to generations to come. Today, it is exactly 75 years since the liberation of Auschwitz. Last week, I had the honor of accompanying His Royal Highness King Willem Alexander to the memorial ceremony in Israel, which also honored those who came to the help of the Jewish people at the darkest period in human history. Following the Nazi defeat, and despite the trauma and suffering they had faced, many survivors arrived in Israel ready to rebuild their lives and reestablish Israel as the homeland of the Jewish people. These survivors, these heroes, together with Jews from around the globe, including 600,000 from Muslim countries, became part of the Israeli society. They laid the foundation for the modern-day state of Israel. Today, the state of Israel is a vibrant, powerful democracy with a thriving economy, a strong legal system, and diverse cultural voice. In spite of the difficult circumstances, Israel continues to strive to live in peace and coexistence with its neighbors. After World War II, Jewish lawyers and scholars pushed for the development of different legal tools to try and prevent the reoccurrence of the Holocaust. Today, we will learn about the principles of the crime of genocide and crime against humanity and how the horrors of the Holocaust shaped their development. In Hebrew, we say, lizkor velo lishkoach, remember and don't forget. Remember those murdered. Remember what happened and what could have been. Always remember and never forget. Our commitment as Jewish people, Israelis, as citizens of the world, to the rule of law and to help those in real need. Thank you.